What is up, podheads? Back with another episode of the Podioslave podcast. My name is Tony. I am joined, as always, by Anthony, and we just had another phenomenal conversation with a band that's putting out a record later this summer that we both really dig. But yeah, Anthony, how you doing, man?
So you ask me this every week. A few weeks ago, I flipped it on you, and when I flipped it on you, you said, "I'm happy someone asked because no one ever asked, so I'm going to ask again. How are you doing?"
Well, I appreciate you asking, and still kicking. I've been sick for a month, but it is what it is. It's into my work quiet time for the most part, which is nice, and I can focus on unplugging from the 10 months out of my year that are really busy. So yeah, thanks. I appreciate you asking, and I'm excited to do more of this and have this kind of pushed to the forefront a little bit for the next couple of months.
Well, I love that before the pod, when you were sick, you probably, realistically, you cared if you would lose your voice. Like if you had laryngitis, you would care. But
right.
Since the pod, I think about that a lot. Like when we went to Crime in Stereo and Heavy Hex that weekend a few weeks back, I lost my voice pretty much that night of Crime in Stereo. And I thought of the podcast. I'm like, if I can't talk, I can't do the podcast. And I think we had one planned a few nights after, right? But I was fine.
Well, that, and there have been numerous times in 4.5 years that one of us has been sick, whether it's you or me or Nate or a guest, and we've had to reschedule because, hey guys, sorry, I can't talk today. Like, it's going to sound terrible. And there are episodes back there where you can tell we're sick, but there are times that it's just bad enough that you can't do it, so you just don't. But you're right, you never think about that before you talk on a microphone for an hour and a half once a week.
Well, where I go is how do the bands do this? The reality is if anyone but the vocalist gets sick, unless they're really, throwing up and stuff, they probably, push through it. But vocalists, if you can't talk, you can't sing, you know?
That becomes difficult. I
guess the punchline is I'm surprised we don't have more cancellations. Because when you're on tour, think of when you go on vacation. Most times I go on vacation, I'm in the airport, I come home sick.
Yeah, when you're around a lot of people that you're never around. Yeah.
And you don't sleep well, and you're sitting upright in a plane for 8 hours. Yeah, and all the germs and stuff.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you asking me how I'm doing, and I am doing phenomenal because as I always like to tweet on days that we record, recording days are the best days, and we just had a nice conversation with Dan and Alan of 4 Year Strong, and their new record, Analysis Paralysis, is coming out August 9th on Pure Noise. We could talk that a little bit. We got to talk tour with The Day to Remember and Story So Far, and others. Military Gun, Pain of Truth, Scowl are on some of those dates too. And it was awesome to get to actually, we've been fans from afar, but to have FaceTime with two people that you've been listening to their music for 15, 20 years, that's pretty cool. Always.
It is cool. And we've thrown out their name. We're not a band with the podcast, but we talk, where most bands would talk, writing process, whatever. We talk, all right, who do we want to chat with? What topics? All this. They are a band that's come up. And I think we jokingly said we should have had them on for our 4-year anniversary episode.
We should have, yeah.
But we had already recorded it at the time we thought of it.
And that came out really well. If you didn't listen to it, go back and check it out. But yeah, you're right. They would have been perfect for that.
But yeah, we talk about old shows, and they're actually we do start the episode with some of the early days talk, because that's how we started the episode, which is we saw them in the mid to late 2000s quite a bit, up in Maine and up in down in Massachusetts and whatnot, and what's changed from those days to now. And what I like thinking about, and we got a little insight, is when you start a band that young, you don't think Tony, imagine if we started a band in high school. Yeah. You wouldn't have thought about the name. You wouldn't have thought about, am I starting this with the right people? It's just whoever's available, really.
Yeah. Are we gonna be regretting this 15 years later? We're still stuck to these people, stuck to this name.
Right.
Fortunately for us, we started this podcast when we were in our 30s. We'd known each other for almost 30 years at that point, and we were comfortable with what we were going to do. But still, even then, you don't know how roles are going to be defined and how people are going to react to the stresses of trying to put something out once a week, even if those stresses are put on yourself by yourself, right? So now you've got fans like 4 Year Strong, and people have been paying attention to their music for a long time. you want to make sure that you're still kind of feeding that beast a little bit, but also doing it for the right reasons and doing it for yourself and with the people that you love. And it sounds like they do, which that's the vibe I get from them in the next 45 minutes.
Yeah, and I feel like they're the blueprint for, I think the four that are in the band have been in the band for 20 years. Like, that's no accident. I know there's a lot of work and you got to massage it and all that, but you also got to want to do it. And like we get into in the episode, very few bands put out an album like Analysis Paralysis 20 years in, 6 albums in. So yeah, if you are listening to this now, if you've heard I think there's probably 3 or 4 songs out from the album now.
Yeah, so
that's a good indication of the album. There's definitely some variety in there. And if you're listening to this after the album came out, like you know what the album is. Like it's a great album. Partner that up with the tour. Like, it's a good time to be in 4 Years Strong.
Yeah, and those guys were awesome. It was a fun conversation. Let's get into it right now with Alan and Dan of 4 Years Strong.
Alan, Dan, 4 Years Strong in the house, in the hotel.
In the hotel. Yep, in Indianapolis right now.
Nice. Are you in that hotel that is in the old train station?
I don't think there's an old train station. Honestly, it's kind of pure chaos outside, so there could be a train station out there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I've been there once, and it was in that. It was this hotel room that is in an old train station right near Lucas Oil Stadium there, where the Colts play.
We are right near the stadium. It's like right there.
You might be near that, man. And
they're in your room that you stayed in.
It looks familiar, actually. Yeah.
We figured it out. This is it.
No, we landed, and there was a tornado warning as soon as we landed, and we were in the perfect place for it. They were like, go into the basement, and you're underground. So.
Oh, cool.
That's my Indianapolis story. Sorry, I had to get that out of the way.
Cool.
So this is cool. We got 4 New England dudes with beards hanging out, and we've been seeing you guys for. I have a spreadsheet of every show I've ever seen, and I think the first time I ever saw you guys, I think was like in 2006. But I was going through my list, and there was a show in Portland, Maine, at a venue called The Station.
Oh yeah.
With A Day to Remember, and that's who you guys were on tour with, and that was like a 500 cap, and like these venues now are what, like 8, 9, 10, like these are huge venues.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, they're up there. Yeah, I remember that show. Yeah, for sure. That was
that was a very sweaty place.
Oh my god.
Yes. Yep.
I'm still sweating.
Twice.
Yeah.
I think we played there twice in our career there, but we did the Day to Remember show, and then we did I think a show with Vanna and Fireworks. I think Vanna was there too. I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever.
That sounds right.
Yep, I remember that sweaty place. You had to carry the gear up a flight of stairs right at the beginning.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Pool tables. Yep. Yeah, it was. We've talked about that place with a lot of people on this podcast because a lot of people came through there in that time frame, and we spent a lot of time in that room. And it was so quirky and weird, but it had a moment in the late 2000s, early 10s, which can't be recreated, especially not for Portland, which just doesn't have venues like that anymore.
Right. Yeah. Venues like that are hard to come around. A lot of different places.
Well, a lot of stuff closed through COVID.
Yeah. Yep.
It did. Yeah. Oh yeah, because you guys played Port City Music Hall a few years ago.
Yep.
That closed. We
lost
one.
that one. Yep.
Yeah, that's a bummer. I like that venue.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like ICC shows, QVCC, Palladium shows. Because I lived in Mass in the mid to late 2000s, and would see you guys quite a bit.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. We played so many like QVCC shows. Like that was like such a
every American Legion and Knights of Columbus you can think of, Massachusetts, we've played there.
Yeah, absolutely. It was crazy.
So, I mean, since we started talking about tour, let's just start there. So you're on tour. You played Kansas last night. You play Indianapolis tomorrow night.
Yep.
In retrospect to those early shows, I mean, do you prefer one over the other? Do you miss those old days? Would you go back? I mean,
I don't know. I mean, like,
go back to my back not hurting as much.
Right.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I go back to my younger self, sure. But no, I mean,
playing to more people is always awesome.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like we've kind of found our stride in the life of 4 Years Strong right now too. Like I feel like we really kind of get what we're all about, get what the music that we want to do is all about, and are able to put on an even better live show now than we were back then. So we're all having a pretty good time doing this right now. Plus, there was a time back then we all hated each other for a while too.
Yeah.
So we're all doing pretty good right now. Yeah.
It's nice to not hate each other. Yeah, it's nice to not hate each other and get through those times because they happen, right?
Made it through to the other side. Yeah.
Yeah, you've been a band for a long time now, like 20 plus years, right? And
22.
yeah, and the lineup's been together for most of it, so pretty wild.
Yeah, it's definitely crazy.
It's definitely weird that it's been that long.
I've definitely spent more time with you than I have with my wife.
Same.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
100%. Yeah.
So what like how has this worked? I'm curious because like it's Tony and I in this podcast, but we had a third host. We started like 4 years ago, so we didn't even last 4 years. We didn't go 4 years strong, guys. That's what.
Nice.
Yeah.
You did it.
How do you keep it going for that long?
I don't know. I mean, when we
Usually we hate at least one of us at a time.
yeah.
Nice.
So there's three people are bonding in the hatred of the one, and then it changes. We rotate.
It shifts.
Yeah.
So one person's miserable at a time. Therefore, that's what keeps us happy.
Yeah.
And best case scenario, it's like someone just on the outside, like a manager or an agent or a crew member, and then the four of us get along real well.
Yeah. I think honestly, what really keeps us good now is that we went through a time where we didn't talk about like animosity or issues that we were having or anything like that, and that led to things getting like pretty shitty in the band. And then we kind of stopped being a band for like a year, not like officially, but just like didn't do anything.
Well, I mean, it was pretty official internally.
Yeah.
In a sense of, I remember the phone call where we were like yelling at each other, and I forget who said it, but someone was like, "Well, maybe we just shouldn't fucking do this anymore." And we're like, "Fine."
Yeah.
And then we didn't speak to each other for a year.
Yeah.
We never like announced it publicly or anything. Like
Yeah. That's what I mean by officially.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, but after that, I think that we were able to do a lot of the kind of growing up that we probably weren't able to do for the first part of our career because we were just doing this like crazy. And then when we came back, now it's pretty easy for us to kind of talk through most of our issues. And I mean, we still get into like arguments and fights and stuff like that, but it's like a married couple, you know? We stay together for the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're not fighting, that means the love is gone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right. Yeah. You need that shot in the arm every now and then, like a little bit of a disagreement that you know you're gonna work through, but it happens. Like it's life.
For the most part, we get together, you know, really well and better than ever nowadays.
Well, the other reality is when you start as young as you guys, I'm guessing late teens, you're not thinking ahead. Like, I'm going to basically have to room with these fuckers for 20 years, like on tour. Like, I wouldn't have thought of that, you know?
I had no idea. This band started when I was 13 years old.
Yeah, I was.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
And yeah, we definitely didn't expect. Wait, maybe I was a little low.
You were older than that. Yeah.
14?
I don't know. You were.
Math. I don't feel like doing math right now.
I was 2 years older than you. So whatever he was, I was 2 years older.
But we were very, very young and definitely had no expectation of anyone ever knowing who we were, which is why the band name is so bad.
So I don't think it is. I remember interviews back in the day. You were kind of sick of answering the genesis of the name, but like it's not bad. What do you mean? It's not. Do you think it's bad?
It's
very a sign of the time. With like there was a whole thing with the three-word
band name. Like it's a band name of that era, which is fine because we are of that era.
We are.
Yeah. It's taken us far. We just honestly hate the way it looks on t-shirts because it's hard to get it to look really good on like modern t-shirts. But like back then it was awesome because you just did it fucking huge and like it didn't really matter. But now like the way modern designs are, like it's really hard to get it to look cool.
And that might just be
our jaded brain.
Yeah, our jaded brain. Like, we'll like a t-shirt design someone sends us until they put the band name on it. We're like, ruined now.
I think Anthony and I can both relate to that. You end up starting something you don't think it's going to last at any length of time, and then it lasts a long time, and people are digging what you do, and you're like, shit, should we have come up with a better name? Like, maybe we could have come up with something different that would have looked cool on a t-shirt.
I feel like a lot of the most successful bands have that same story.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, like, do you really think that Limp Bizkit was like, oh, we're going to be fucking millionaires. We might as well name it Limp Bizkit.
Right, exactly.
I love that that's the first band that came to mind.
but that band name rules. But when they said it, I'm sure it was a joke, you know?
So back then, you didn't see like playing at Fenway Park coming.
No,
Definitely.
That's
didn't
crazy.
see playing at Fenway Park coming. Honestly, didn't even see playing at the Palladium.
Yeah.
Like, we were just like, nope,
Yeah.
VFW halls.
Any amount of people singing the words at shows was like the coolest thing in the world.
The idea of actually getting money,
Any amount of money.
any amount of money, was like a complete foreign.
$100.
Wait, what was the first gig that you actually got paid? Do you
I
remember?
remember it.
I don't.
It was our first holiday show.
No.
Oh,
I
07?
remember the first.
It was. It was
the
no, sorry,
first time
it wasn't the
we-
holiday one.
It was the first time I remember what you're talking about. It's the first time we walked away from a show and was like, "Here's some for you, and here's some for you,
Yeah.
and here's some for you,"
Yeah,
as opposed to it just going straight into the gas tank. you
yeah,
know?
yeah. Like we
Um,
handed each other some
And
money.
I think we each got like $80 or like
Yeah.
$100 or something,
Yeah.
and we're like, "Damn, we could really make a living doing this."
That's awesome. Yeah.
I can make a living living in my parents' house doing
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, a totally separate thing. But I remember one of our first tours, we went with this band, this Canadian band called the Fully Down,
Fully down, yeah.
and it was like a door deal, whatever. So few people were going out to the shows, and I remember we got paid to split between the two bands $8.
Wow.
You get 4, we get 4. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And this is probably when you had 5 guys in the band, so you don't even get $1.
5 guys in the band, and I think we had a merch guy with us, didn't we?
Yeah.
Well, now you're playing 8K cap, sheds with Day to Remember, and that's amazing. I mean, the fact that it's still happening and you guys are not splitting $8 between 12 people, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's
bad.
great. Yeah, we're very, very fortunate and stoked that we've been able to do this for as long as we have and been able to, I guess, kind of stay relevant in a way. You know what I mean? Because that's something that we always. It's not that we strive to stay relevant, but we're always trying to push like the music that we write into being like every record we do, we want it to be something different, something that pushes the envelope for what our band is. So
we definitely have a self-conscious fear of just like we just don't want to be a band that just lives in the past and just keeps doing the same thing over and over and over, and what we think people expect of us, which is what we did in 2007.
Yeah,
because that's not who we are and who we want to be, and that's not what we like out of artists we like. We, as just like in general, big fans of music, we like being challenged as listeners. So as music writers, we'd like to try and do the same thing for us and our listeners.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing you have going is I know you joked about your back hurting, but you're still young enough where you're not like, I mean, we're probably the same age. Like, we're not the old guy, like trying to relive the past. Like, there's still, you guys are as energetic. Like,
there's still some life in here, for sure.
there's still some, exactly.
Exactly.
Well, like I saw you guys at the Sticks and Stones Fest a couple summers ago, and you guys were better than ever. You know what I mean?
Thank you. Yeah, I mean
we're feeling that way too.
Yeah,
but I know that's just like what most artists probably say about themselves writing. Except I did see a great interview with Paul McCartney, where I think it was on like the Smart List podcast or something, and they asked him like, like most artists probably say this, but do you feel like you're writing your best material now? Like you're most excited about and he was like, fuck no, I was in the Beatles.
Right.
I love that. At least he was on
And I
it.
was like, hell yeah. Self-aware. I like it.
I mean, it's definitely probably the hardest. We've been working really hard to try to be at the top of our game.
Yeah.
So it's cool that people like you and other people are seeing that. It's cool to put something out that you want people to see and they're actually seeing what you want. That's cool.
That's very cool. And when we have it on small scale with this podcast every now and then, we're like, oh, people saw that. That's pretty amazing. Awesome. For you guys, new record coming out in August, Analysis Paralysis, August 9th, Pure Noise. We've heard it. It's amazing. And you guys are all over the map, like style-wise with this one, which I think lends itself to you're not going to get bored of it. You know what I mean? Like there's something for everybody on this one, and it's got a range, and yeah, it's exciting stuff, and it's exciting time for you guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's
Kind of always the goal.
it was kind of the goal, but also not necessarily to be like as broad of a record as it was, because when we went into the studio, we didn't actually have any songs written. Like we had a date to go into the studio, and a week before we went in, we called Will Putney, the producer, and we're just like, listen, we didn't write any songs. We haven't written anything yet. We have some riffs. We don't have any finished songs, but we don't want to move the studio date down the line, because if we do, we're just going to be calling you a week before that studio date saying the same thing. So Alan and I went down there and just kind of locked ourselves in one of his like spare bedrooms in his house for a month and just wrote the record. And what was funny is we've never written a record in that way. We've never been like, okay, let's lock ourselves in the room and write an entire record. We've done like little stints of like, let's go in here and write 3 songs.
Yeah, but it was always pretty low pressure of the outcome, because if we didn't like the songs, then we try again next time.
Yeah.
But this was like, no,
you're writing the record.
Whatever we write will probably be the record.
Why would you do that? Why would you do that to yourself?
We have to like this one, right? Yeah.
Why would...
I think it was just, it wasn't even that we did it to we did it to ourselves by procrastination and having honestly having analysis paralysis for so long of like what we wanted to do for the record. And instead of giving us a little bit more leash, Al and I have always kind of been pretty good at writing under pressure. Like a lot of our best songs have been written like quickly and under a time constraint. So we're just like, all right, let's just keep the time constraint and just work in that. And what I think it did was it, while we were, stressing about writing songs and working fast, but it also made it so that a lot of the core idea of what the song was kind of remained through a lot of the record. We didn't have a lot of time to overanalyze things and get farther away from the genesis of the inspiration for that song, which I think is why the record feels a little bit more fast as far as like the types of songs that you're getting out of it, is because we didn't spend as much time like trying to hone it in, which I think is what I like about it.
Yeah, we were just like, we were so, I don't know what necessarily want to use the word underprepared, but really we were so underprepared that when we started writing, there were no rules. Like we were just like, whatever is coming out, let's see it through.
Yeah.
Whether it was inside the box, outside the box, or on a fucking another planet, we just wanted to see it through, just to see what would come of it. Because honestly, even some of our older songs, we used to do that, but then we would hone it in. Like I remember, like Go Down in History, one of our older songs, was written as an entirely different genre. Basically, it sounded like a freaking U2 song or something. It was like super slow and ambient, but like the lyrics, the melodies, the chord progressions, all of it were the same. And at one point, we were like, this song's really cool, but it's not right. So let's like reimagine it to be more like what For Your Strong is.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of a fun way to write music. It's just like not put up boundaries of like, but For Your Strong wouldn't do that, But exactly, that's why we should see it through, because something exciting might come of it. And even if it ends up not being something we use, some part of it might be.
And what was cool, what I liked about this process too, is we got the songs to a point, and then we're like, okay, next song.
Yeah.
Like we didn't let ourselves just like sit in it and be like, okay, how can we fix this part? We're like, nope, we got to move on to a new song.
Yeah, and when I think we wrote like 16 or 18 songs.
Yeah.
And then started to like, okay, now that we have the song,
let's find the record.
Now let's like pre-pro and like kind of really dig into the structure of them and write the lyrics.
Yeah.
There was a lot of lyrics to write.
Yeah.
Were you guys going in this way, having not done it that way before? Were you super nervous? Were you anxious about it? Or were you just like, we're just going to make this happen?
We were a fucking wreck.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
A lot of just hour-long conversations about
more than an hour.
Hours of conversations about just like,
what the heck is music even?
Yeah. Like we very much were like just out of ideas. Like we would sit there holding a guitar and be like, I don't know how to do new things on this. Like, I don't know. Like, I think I used it all up. And like we kind of had to get over that hump of like, again, the name of the record is very fitting because that's very much what we were in. We were in analysis paralysis. We were just over analyzing what we should be doing. How are we going to push? You know, we with Brain Pain, the record we did before this one, you know, we tried to redefine what 4 Year Strong is, what the modern 4 Year Strong is, basing it on like where our current music influences are, where the types of songs that we are liking now, and trying to bring it to a place where we can meet in the middle, where our fans will enjoy it as 4 Year Strong and will enjoy it as music creators. And when it was successful, we were like, okay, awesome, this rocks. Like now we kind of have more opportunities to do stuff. But then when we came to this record, we started being like, okay, how can we reinvent the band again? And I remember at one point, Will was just like, you already did it. You don't need to change it again. And he's like, just do it, just do more of that. And so that was kind of it. We were just kind of stuck in like with no music coming out, just being like, just talking about what the record could be forever.
It was also a weird time for both of us, like inspiration wise. Like there wasn't a lot of new music that was like really like inspiring us. And we were both listening to just a lot of like stuff we grew up listening to in the 90s. And like, I don't know. It was just like, I think we were both in a weird place influence wise and just didn't really know what we wanted the record to be. We had this like, I think we both had a very similar, really blurry picture in our head of what it could be, but had no idea how to bring it into focus. And especially with being at home and having, you know, our home lives as busy and chaotic as they are, to like be able to get together and bring it to life was like impossible, which is why we needed to lock ourselves in that room, and it worked.
Well, I think this approach lends itself to capturing a moment, because if there were a lot of albums, I don't know if you guys, I mean, I think you just said what I'm going to say is there are a lot of albums coming out of COVID that you could tell this was just a Dropbox file swap back and forth, you know, and it's just a bunch of junk. But there's something to be said about getting in a room, getting real-time feedback, and then Will saying, enough is enough, we're moving on. Like, you got it. Stop sticking around, you know?
It was a stressful, but I think successful way to write a record.
Well, now you know you can do it that way.
We can use what we learned from this and maybe do it in a way that's maybe a little less stressful.
I think I would want to be very prepared and do this process. Not have nothing and have to write a whole record, because it was very stressful and we had a lot of, you know, staying up all fucking night being like, what the fuck are we even doing?
Honestly, Uncooked, the song that we put out last, was the first song that we basically finished where we're just like, oh, okay, I feel a little bit better now. Like now we have a song, it's done. I love it. I kind of am starting to see the picture of what this record is going to be. And once we had that kind of in the bag, our feet kind of hit the ground running a little bit. And the songs started to flow out a lot more than they were at the beginning.
So this far into your career, do you guys have that internal clock where you're like, all right, we just got off tour, we probably should be creating now? Does that hit you? Do you just kind of like the change of the seasons? You can just tell it's time.
I mean, yes, but it doesn't ever turn into action.
Yeah, we think that. We think that we're like, man, I really should be doing this, and that's it. That's as far as we get with it. I mean, we just, now that we're older, we have a lot more responsibilities at home with our families and other businesses and jobs, just things that are going on in our lives, and just home relationships that we have to maintain and things. So it's a little harder sometimes to carve out the appropriate amount of time and attention that's needed to do it.
Yeah, because to do this like full time and have it be as successful as we want it to be, it kind of has to be a full-time job. You can't go on tour for 2 months, go home and disappear and not even think about the band for the 3 months between tours. Like, we kind of had that realization more recently, I guess, that like, you know, we got to be thinking about merch. We got to be thinking about new music. We got to be thinking about music videos. We got to be thinking about how we're marketing ourselves Like there's always something that we should be working on as a band.
Was there ever the thought of like, let's just throw one, maybe put one song together and put that out there, and then we'll see where it goes? I know you did last fall, right? That's one of them was like that, but that was probably with the idea of the record coming.
Well, that was part of the record. Like, like the record, we finished recording the record last April 20.
Oh wow, yeah.
So Dead End Friend was always part of the record. We just didn't announce it yet because the whole thing wasn't finished being mixed, and there was still a lot of work to be done. But it was
that, and we had kind of planned for it to be a long rollout.
Yeah.
Like nowadays, it's just kind of the way that a lot of people digest music. We just thought that maybe it would be a more interesting approach and a fun science experiment to kind of do a longer rollout with more single drops.
Yeah, more focus on individual tracks as opposed to just like putting a bunch of information out there and expecting people to hear song 9.
Yeah. Like you're saying this thing comes out in like 2 weeks?
Yeah, right? This would be about 2 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, there'll be another song out by the time this comes out.
Nice. Yeah.
Oh shit, yeah.
Yeah. So like that's kind of what we're doing is like continuing to drop songs and like more than normal. Like more than you normally would drop from a record, just leading up to the record, and just kind of seeing how that kind of plays out. Which so far, I've been really happy with the way that we've been rolling things out. So we'll continue that.
Yeah, I mean the songs that are out are great.
Thanks.
I mean, we've listened to the album. There's definitely some chances taken. Like you can tell, there's stuff that I'm not going to speak for you guys, but like maybe you would never have even thought of in the Rise days or the Enemy days.
Absolutely.
It's just evolution of the band and just living in the moment, like we said. Like Aftermath, the first track, Tony and I we had a text going. I'm like, we didn't even know if we had the right album when the little beat started. Yeah, and then Daddy of Mine, super heavy. I'm like, this is a ripper. And then track 9, I'm probably saying it wrong, but STFIL.
Yeah.
You guys are flexing vocally on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Completely different songs,
Yeah, that one originally wasn't even written to be a 4 Year Strong song. It was just kind of this thing for fun. And then Will, the producer, was like, you got to make it a song. We're like, all right.
Yeah. Yeah. It really is kind of like you're saying, like it very much was like, we weren't looking as much for a through line in the record other than we just wanted to be a collection of really fun songs. We wanted to be a collection of songs that when you go to a show, it's going to like each one has a moment that is going to be awesome live. You know what I mean? And that was very much like every song that we wrote, we're just like, okay, what's the next part going to be? And live, why are we doing that? What's supposed to be happening live?
What is the crowd doing?
It's a jump part, it's a sing part, it's the headbang part. Like, what is this? And every part that we go to, that's one of the first questions we ask, and that was kind of the through line through writing a lot of these songs. And Aftermath was kind of like that too. It was just kind of like, let's write like a journey song. We call that a journey song because it doesn't necessarily have like a chorus or parts that come back and repeat. It just kind of starts in one place and just keeps going into different places. And the fun experiment with that song was the whole song has the that rhythm is there the entire time, and trying to find new interesting ways of evolving that with dynamic or energy or what type way we can shift that to make it stay exciting the whole way without straying too far from that main theme the whole way. It's kind of like almost like writing like a movie score. You know what I mean? Like where you know the hero score, but you have to use it during sad parts. You have to use it during happy parts. You got to use it during scary parts. And like, that's kind of what that song does.
And would you guys have ever even thought of that in the early days? Probably not, right?
No,
definitely
not.
Right?
We would have been like pop punk mosh part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pop punk mosh part done.
Pop punk, yeah.
Yeah.
But like, probably still having the live show in mind back then, but now you're doing it a couple of different ways.
Yeah, I mean, we've gone through weird evolutions as writers. Like there was like the self-titled record. I'm pretty sure that was just me and Alan being like, let's write the hardest guitar lines we can.
Yeah.
And then sing over them.
Yeah. Look, and there's so much on that album that goes probably unnoticed.
Yeah.
The amount of detail we put into what we were playing on the guitar, and especially with the vocals on top of everything.
Yeah.
And I think something we learned from that point, really the turning point, was Brain Pain, and it applied also to this album, was like giving everything its own moment instead of all the moments happening at the same time. Instead of the drums going crazy, the guitar going crazy, the bass and the vocals all just like on 10 the whole time. It was like, how do we make sure all the energy we're putting into this one guitar riff gets the attention it deserves? Or how does this vocal have the impact that we have it? Like everything has to have a moment where people hear it and notice it and appreciate it.
Yeah. That happened a lot on Brain Pain. Like you can hear it on that record where, you know, a lot of the crazy riffs are in like these weird vocal breaks, and everything was kind of designed in that way so that we spend a lot of time crafting this really cool riff. And then every time we get a mix back, we're like, I can't hear it. We're like, yeah, because you're both screaming over it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like, you know, we wanted to make sure that we let everything breathe.
We had this moment after recording Brain Pain where me and Dan were like listening back and we're like, fuck, is there not enough like guitar riffs? Is it not heavy enough? Is it like, did we forget that part? And then fast forward to coming out, we were getting feedback that it was like the heaviest, riffiest thing we've done yet. And I think we realized it was because of that. It was because, yes, maybe there's not as many riffs, but the riffs that are there are the focus.
Yeah.
And the heavy parts that are there are highly in focus and really so that we just tried to apply it to the new music as well.
Yeah.
Well, you could say that about this album. You could say this is the heaviest album. I mean, the first two songs are as heavy, you know, well, probably Daddy Mine is probably it could be the heaviest song you guys have ever written, but
yeah,
I think so.
Yeah.
That's like mostly because we're screaming the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which has been weird to do live.
Oh yeah. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
So we got to talk about the album artwork. And it's funny. Before I came down to the basement here, I put my son to bed. I pulled up the album artwork on my phone because he's in a big Muppet Babies phase. And you know what he said when I showed it to him?
What?
He goes, "Can I touch it?" True story. 2.5 years old.
I love that.
I love that.
Yeah, I mean, we were really struggling with what we wanted the imagery of the record to be, and
well, we're very, I think, capable of bringing. I was saying before, I think we had this like blurry picture of what the album sounded like, and like I think we're very confident in ourselves in like eventually we can pull that together musically, like. But we do not have the same skill when it comes to visuals for whatever reason. Like we know kind of what we want, but we have no idea how to bring it to life because we're not artists, you know, we're musicians. So
one day flipping through Instagram, I think it was you who found it, right?
Yeah.
Just found this
we were
artist.
in Uber to go get ramen.
Yeah. Found this artist on Instagram who, you know, all of his stuff very much
had these characters,
but also had like a very cool aesthetic that we thought was really cool, because one of the things that, you know, this record is like lyrically and thematically is a little bit darker and a little bit more like
uncomfortable.
Yeah, I would agree.
Than some of our other records have been. So we kind of wanted a little more of that uncomfortableness in a lot of the imagery and a lot of the things around the record, which is why like a lot of the videos we've kind of gone through have had a little bit of that like kind of uncomfortable like staring towards the camera, and just something is a little bit awkward and off, and this artwork did the same thing. Like it's just kind of,
when we saw it, we were like, we kind of all knew, like the conversation actually started like, because we were all in the conversation talking to artists, we were getting art back that we didn't love, we didn't even know what we wanted to be, and we had this conversation of like, see, like if our artwork was like this, it would be awesome. And then finally we're just like, wait, could it be this?
yeah.
And we didn't know anything about the artist
awesome.
like that, and we just
So we reached out to him.
reached out, and he was like, yeah,
yeah, you can have the stuff. So then, you know, once we kind of had that, then we got the art, sent it to the artist that's kind of in charge of putting the whole record together.
The art director.
They manipulated it, put it into, you know, a layout and you know, changed certain things that we wanted to change about that guy's thing. And it was just this kind of big amalgamation of different people kind of throwing stuff in and helping us kind of turn it into what it became, which is this really weird thing, which we like. What I like about it is that on Spotify, if I'm going down just a little playlist of like all the different art, I immediately see it.
You
You know what I mean?
miss it.
You can't
You can't
miss
miss it. And I love that. That's always kind of been a thing with our
Yep.
records. Our records have always had fucking weird art. And it's not because we have this fantastic vision of like, no, I know exactly what it's going to be. It's going to be a wizard riding a squid in space, fighting robot sharks. No, that literally came about because we just started throwing fucking words
things.
at an artist. We're like, there could be a
Nice.
wizard, and maybe there's a squid, and maybe there's sharks. And there were definitely stuff that he was like, I can't fit all this stuff into a fucking thing. And that's kind of what all of our art has always been. It's always just been like this, I don't fucking know, maybe this.
Yeah, we've never really taken it all that seriously. Like we've always just been about the music, and that's where we put all of our effort, and everything else has kind of been an afterthought a little bit. And we don't know, I don't know, this was the first time. Well, we talked about that because we didn't know what the artwork wanted to be, and we did some research on some of our favorite album artwork, you know, from the 90s and stuff like that, and a lot of them were like licensed images, like something that was already in existence that they were like, I like the way that looks, I want to apply it to what we do. And we looked into that, and that didn't really work, but we just love the idea of seeing something and going, that's the blurry picture I had in my head coming to life, you know, as opposed to trying to describe something I don't even know how to describe to an artist to bring to life that like then they do, and I'm like, nope, sorry you did all that work.
Well, I think it's the only album without your name on it. It's just this is it. It is. Yeah.
And that was actually a decision made pretty early on.
Yeah.
Because we just wanted to do something a little bit different, and with Spotify, like with a lot of people streaming, so you got Spotify and Amazon Music, and Apple, it already says it right underneath the thing. So you don't really need it to say it on the record.
That's a great point.
When you get the vinyl, there will be like a sticker on the front that has the name and has the album title before you unwrap it. So that was kind of the idea there, is to try something a little different with that.
Well, I love and you said it, for the modern day, like scrolling through a Spotify playlist and seeing that and being like, there it is. Like, I know that's what we did as kids walking into the record store. It's like, ooh, that record right there has got cool art. I got to buy it, right? Like, that's something that I got to listen to. I got to know what's going on there. So this,
100%.
Like that saying, don't judge a book by its cover, is such bullshit, because that's literally the only way I know how to buy a book.
right. Yeah.
Is I see the cover and I'm like, that looks interesting. Then I read the back cover or whatever, but you got to judge a book by its cover. Same
There's
thing.
a reason they do all that stuff, right? Because they want you to pick it up in the store and see what it is.
Yeah, and you know, kind of what I was saying before about how we kind of recently had this epiphany way too late in our lives that the band has to be more of a full-time job. Like, we have to think about it all the time, and we also simultaneously realize that we have to care about everything as much as we care about the music. And I think the artwork on this album and the branding and the videos and stuff, we've put a lot more effort into this time around than we ever have.
Yeah.
Just like it all matters. Music most, of course.
Just switch to your phone.
Yeah.
Call them up on that one.
Yeah, we're going to switch phones because Dan's phone's going to die.
Yeah, my phone's he's going to call you up on the same Zoom.
I got the same link.
Perfect.
That would be a seamless transition here.
Yeah. It'd be nice. And then I'll leave when this one comes in, so don't go. Wee!
No, we want two angles here, guys. So we need the full 360 here.
Ooh, there we go. Look at that. Seamless.
Look at that, dude. Camera 1, camera 2.
So you said music videos. Before we talk about this, if you're listening and haven't seen it, pause this podcast, go watch the Uncooked video. Guys, it could be like my favorite video in like recent memory. So who, how, why, what? So where is that a real? Is it the hot dog place? Like, is that's obviously a real spot, right?
Yeah, it's a place in Worcester called George's Coney Island Hot Dog.
George's.
Yep.
And it's really, the video idea came because we didn't know what to do for a video, and Ben, the director, Ben Lieber, suggested that we brainstorm about just like visually interesting locations, and like that, instead of coming up with an idea and then figuring out where to do said idea, like if the opposite could happen, if we figured out where to do something, if the idea could come from that. And I think it was Joe, the bass player, actually, who was like, Coney Island looks amazing, because it does. The colors, just like the vibe in there.
It's over 100 years
like
old.
Church pews, it looks like the chairs.
It's over 100 years old. It's been there forever, and the decor inside hasn't really been changed all that much over the years. So it just has this, like, I don't know, this really cool coloring and just vibe in there that kind of matches the aesthetic that we've been going for on the record. Like the blue of the walls almost matches the blue on the cover of the record, and the coloring really just matched, and the people there were just really cool,
really great, and really helpful about bringing it all to life and letting us throw hot dogs all over the place.
Yeah, the woman that's dancing in there is the owner. Yeah.
How did you pitch it to them? Like, what's the conversation?
I don't know, but that was all the director, Ben. We just told him, hey, we want to do it here. He's like, all right, I'm on it.
Nice.
Well, I think what worked in our favor is that he said, hey, I'm directing a video for a band called 4 Years Strong, and they want to do a video here. And the owner's son was like, oh, fuck yeah, 4 Years Strong's awesome. That'd be great.
Nice.
So I think just the fact that I think that helped us a lot. So yeah, and they were very gracious with their time and any resources they had. I mean, they made over 300 hot dogs for that shoot, and you know, yeah. And we're probably the first, when we broke for lunch, we had Nancy Chang's Chinese food. So we're probably the first people to eat not hot dogs in that restaurant in over 100 years.
Well, the funny thing is we got a couple vegans in the band, so they can't eat hot dogs.
Yeah.
So we had to get lunch with some vegan options.
Well, that's also why in the video, there's at one point where the guy who's dancing takes a bite of a hot dog, but it's got a pickle in it instead. Because that was our nod to the vegans in the band. Yeah. They
don't do vegan dogs at this place?
No, they're old school.
Yeah.
There's not much of a menu. It is what it has been.
Yes. Well, there's something to be said for that too, right? I mean, that's cool that you were able to do it there. It is a cool video. If you haven't watched it, definitely pause this and go watch it. We'll be here when you get back, hanging out. Yeah. So, and talking to you guys now for 45 minutes or so, and obviously being a fan from the outside for a while and not having access to talk to you, but we get this feeling that kind of the ethos is you're going to keep it light, you're going to have fun with it, really, no matter what you're doing. Is that on purpose? You must be on purpose.
I mean, that's what
that's our personality,
and
there you go.
Why we like music, because it's fun, not because it's, I don't know.
Yeah, when we're not playing music, we're not just sitting around frowning all the time. Like, we're usually laughing and having fun and keeping things light. And that's always been the personality. Like, even though we're older, we're still kind of, I think, at heart, still the same, teenager kids that started the band. We still laugh at fart and dick jokes, and like, it's what I mean? It's all the same shit. And that's kind of
why specifically the artwork and the videos have always had just like that to it, because the one thing we do care a lot about and don't phone in at all is the music, and everything else has always just kind of been like, yeah, well, we got the music that we're happy with that, so let's just have fun with everything else.
I mean, if you're going to do it day in and day out, and that is your personality, then it totally makes sense. And that's the vibe I always like. I can't speak for everyone, but I've never had a bad time at a 4 Year Strong show. I mean,
it's good to know.
That's good.
I can't say the same for myself.
There you go. The album drops, and by the time this drops, probably another month and a half, right? August 9th, Pure Noise.
Yep.
Check it out. I mean, if you're listening to this before it drops, you probably haven't heard all of it. You probably heard 3 or 4 songs. It's as good, if not better, than the singles. On top of that, you're on tour until what, end of July?
Yeah.
July 20th.
I do remember
Story so
Who else?
far.
Story so far. I mean, stack, just
yeah.
beyond stack,
It's
and then it's got the rotating military gun.
Scowl, Pain of Truth. It's a killer lineup for sure. Great show.
Well, and this will come out a couple days, I think, before you guys play our neck of the woods. You're playing
Oh, cool.
Boston, and then you're playing Guilford, New Hampshire.
Yeah, we're from Maine.
Yeah, we're from Maine, so Guilford would probably be the closest to us. So and that's a cool venue. You been there before? That's a cool venue.
No,
I don't think I ever have.
I can't remember the last time we played in New Hampshire.
Oh my god!
I know that we did once.
What was the place in Nashua that like had graffiti all over the walls?
Bomb shelter.
Maybe
that might be it. Yeah, that might be it. The only New Hampshire shows I remember playing all VFW halls.
Was it Drifters? Club Drifters?
Drifters. That sounds familiar. Yeah,
I went there. Yeah.
Yep. That makes a lot of sense. Yep.
Yeah, this is more amphitheater outside, big venue, fun, parking lot to party. Like it'll be a fun show.
That's awesome.
Hopefully we make our way down to that one. That would be a good one to get. It's a Sunday, so.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'm really excited for this tour to hit the Northeast. I mean, I think it's gonna just annihilate it. Yeah. It's gonna be awesome.
I mean, we've been in, for us, like pretty like interesting markets, Kansas and things like that, and the shows have been great. So when we get to like Massachusetts, I'm hoping, fingers crossed, it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's gonna fucking slam.
You're not kidding, because I was looking through the city list and I'm like, is that a real
Yeah.
Well, that's the problem with amphitheaters.
Boulder Springs?
Yeah. That's the weird thing about like
yesterday.
Amphitheaters and stuff. They're not like in the cities. They're always like the Boston Warped Tour was always in Mansfield, at Comcast Center.
Or Suffolk Downs.
Yeah, so it's a lot of that kind of thing. Because I think a lot of people don't like to live next to a giant outdoor venue.
Right.
That plays until 11 o'clock at night.
Yep.
So,
guys, this has been a lot of fun. We when we found out we had an opportunity to chat with you, we were like, yes, we're all in. We've been fans for 18, 19 years, whatever it's been. And there's very few bands, I'll say, 6 albums in, that like the albums don't suck. You know what I mean? This album does not
hard to
suck.
keep it going that long.
It's hard to keep it going, and it's hard to keep like people's attention, and not that like Spotify metrics are everything, but you guys could be the biggest you've ever been right now. It's crazy to think about.
It is pretty weird.
It is pretty crazy to think about. And
it's pretty exciting.
We're very excited and also very just grateful for not only to our former selves for continuing to work and continuing to give it for as long as we did, but also for our fan base has always just been really super supportive, diehard fans. And like, we're just crazy lucky and
we have a team that like, with management and label and agents and stuff like that we're just like really excited about and have been working their asses off with us for the past handful of years. And I feel like we're in this really sweet spot where everyone works really well together.
I think it's the most give a shit that like any of us or our team had all at the same time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Usually like
think of people in the workforce that have been in the game for 20 years. Yeah. No one gives a shit. So the fact that everyone gives a shit is amazing. It's amazing.
And honestly, there was a long time where we didn't give nearly as big a shit as we should have. Like it was just kind of happening. We weren't. It's not that we didn't give a shit, but we didn't actively give a shit.
We're on autopilot a lot of
and I think we finally found this stride of like, if we want to keep doing this, we got to fucking work for it.
Well, and we weren't really happy in autopilot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, we're a lot more happy now that we've really decided to take full control and do it the exact way that we want to do it, as opposed to doing it the way that we think people think we should do it, or doing it the way that we think we're supposed to do it. We're just making sure that we're doing everything the way we want.
Yeah, I saw this great clip of fucking Liam Gallagher or Noel Gallagher or something saying like, the world didn't like ask for Jimi Hendrix. Like they didn't know they wanted it, but they fucking got it. And then he changed the fucking world with music. Like people don't know what they want. So for us to be writing music that we think people expect from us is like the last thing we want to do.
Right on. I love that.
It is useful information when we're writing to know that we want to like be supportive of who's been supporting us and the relationship we've built with them. But like that's the job of the artist, is to like bring forth who we are in hopes that they see the authenticity and hear the authenticity. And I think we found this stride for ourselves where we're confident in that, and we're not just always trying to recreate the last thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's cool that you got to that spot too, having done it for this long and getting to the point where you're like, you know what, we're doing this. We'll give people what they don't know they want yet. It's coming at you right now. And I think this record's that.
Fingers crossed you do want it. We'll see.
Well, you're always going to do that, right? We're always going to cross our fingers that people are going to resonate with what you're doing. But I think people will with this one. And I'm excited for the Northeast is going to get you guys in the next couple of days after this drops. So if it's early late in June and you're hearing this right now, get ready for the record and get ready to go see, this tour for your Strong Day to Remember Story So Far. It's coming at you right now.
Hell yeah.
Fuck yeah.
This was awesome, guys. Thank you so much for having us. It's awesome.
Yeah. Thanks,
Thank
guys.
Take it easy.
Thank you for listening to Podioslave. We are at Podioslave on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all of the places that you can find us on social media. Facebook, Podioslave Podcast. YouTube, Podioslave Podcast there. Email us at podioslavepodcast@gmail.com. And hey, if you want to become a supporter, click on the link at the bottom of the episode and give us $1, give us $5. It keeps the lights on, keeps us going. We really appreciate that stuff. Thank you.